Never seems to stop. The government is like an out-of-control wild boar at a rodeo, and all you have to do is be very careful not to get gored. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Here are a few facts on the size of the government in the United States. First of all, the average salary in the private sector is $41,000. The average salary that we pay federal workers is $71,000. 20% of all federal workers make over $100,000. The salary of your congressman is $174,000. In addition, they get health care for the rest of their lives and a pension plan for up to 80% of their pay. As a candidate for Congress, I believe this is far too lucrative. I won't accept either the health care plan, the pension plan, and for the salary, I only accept the median household income and donate the rest back to the local communities to local nonprofit hospitals. Well, another question is, how many government workers are there? There are 22.5 million government workers in the United States. This does not include contractors. It is the second largest job sector in our country today. However, we need to remember that government never creates wealth. It can only consume it. Government has nothing. It can only give away what it first takes from someone else. A few things on the income tax. The government can take away your freedom like it did for George, but it can also take away your income. The income tax is an immoral and unnecessary tax. Only you should have the right to your income, and what many Americans do not realize is that the federal income tax is completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. 50% of the people that pay the income tax only account for 3% of what the tax actually brings in. It's a completely unnecessary tax. If you cut the size of the federal government by the size of the federal income tax, our government will be the same size as it was in 2005. If you cut it again, our government will be the same size as it was in 1998, which was still far too large. Now, how are all of our tax dollars spent? Or the Federal Reserve dollars that are just printed up? It's spent on programs such as Social Security and Medicare, which have $107 trillion in unfunded liabilities and will be insolvent within the next 5 to 10 years. We spend it on our military. We spent far over $1 trillion on over 761 military bases in 150 countries on the face of the planet. We have 55,000 troops in Germany, 10,000 troops in Italy, 35,000 troops in Japan, in addition to all the troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it's time to bring them all home now. Woo! Now, as far as government infringing on your personal liberties, a couple of weeks ago, the federal government passed a DNA database bill. In 2006, my competitor, Charlie Dent, voted for a federal database where if you are arrested, not if you are convicted, but if you are arrested and charged with a federal crime, you can have a DNA sample forcibly extracted, and if not, you are guilty of an additional crime.
Boo!
Last week in Congress, they passed a bill to bribe the states by offering them money in return for taking DNA samples from anyone, again, that's arrested. There are far better alternatives. If a DNA sample is necessary, it can be taken with a warrant in a court of law done in a proper manner. Not with this federal database where they'll share all your data, and who knows about the integrity of that data. From the mortgage bailout that was passed over the last summer, 2 summers ago in 2008, there was a part that licenses the IRS to monitor every single transaction you make with your credit cards. Most Americans have no idea that this exists. In the stimulus bill that was passed a year ago, that was supposed to create all the jobs and didn't create any, there was $21 billion allotted to digitize all medical records into a federal database. Some federal officials, including from the FDIC, will be granted access to this database. So next time you go asking for a home loan, the federal government might know more about your health than you do. And it might not be so convenient for the government when they have control of your health care as well, with the mandate that was passed earlier this year, in where you are forced, as a citizen of the United States, to buy a good or service. We don't force Americans to buy, a certain brand of donut or a certain brand of food. There's no way we should be forcing them to buy health insurance either. And that all aside, we can regain our liberty in our land if we just focus on one thing. We only had some semblance of the rule of law. We have no rule of law in our country today. Judges, they play an important part as referees in ensuring fair trials and the rule of law in our society. All judges are bound to obey the federal and state constitutions that they have sworn to uphold. And of course, they should never take this opportunity as referees to legislate from the bench. The constitutional right to trial should be immediately reinstated. It is listed in the Constitution. You have a right to trial by jury, and yet in Pennsylvania that right does not exist in every case. That should be enforced. Juries should also have the unquestioned ability to nullify any decisions that are made in a court of law.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Woo, woo. And this is also what the pamphleteer was handing out at the time of his arrest. That said, I don't want to speak forever, so just remember this. Don't let the federal government control your life, your wallet, or your freedom. Thank you very much.